Welcome back to Talk Tickers. You know, we usually spend our time digging through earnings calls, but today we're going to take a break from all the balance sheets and stuff to talk about some breaking news.
Definitely.
SpaceX and their Starship program.
Yeah, it's a pretty big development.
Absolutely. So for anyone who hasn't been, completely glued to the spaceflight news feeds, SpaceX attempted another test flight of their Starship prototype. And, things didn't exactly go according to plan.
Yeah, that's one way to put it.
Yeah.
The Starship prototype had what they call a rapid unplanned disassembly.
Right.
Or, to put it more simply, it broke up mid-flight during the landing attempt.
We've all seen the footage by now, and it's pretty dramatic, to say the least.
Right.
But before we get into, what went wrong,
Sure.
can you give us a little background on why this Starship program is such a big deal in the first place?
Well, the big thing is that SpaceX has Mars in their sights, and Starship is the key to making that happen.
Right.
It's not just about launching satellites or anything like that. This is about being able to transport people and significant payloads to the moon and Mars.
So it's about, taking humanity beyond just Earth's orbit.
Yeah, exactly.
But what makes Starship so different from, the rockets we've seen in the past?
Well, the biggest thing is that Starship is designed to be fully reusable.
Okay.
Both the booster that provides the initial liftoff and the Starship spacecraft itself.
Right.
And that reusability is critical to being able to bring down the cost of space travel and making all these very ambitious missions possible long term.
So it's like the difference between, buying a new car every time you want to take a road trip.
Yeah.
Versus having one that you could just refuel and reuse.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the kind of revolution in thinking that SpaceX is bringing to the space industry.
So given all that, this wasn't just another rocket launch.
No.
This test flight was a crucial step in developing something that could completely change the future of space exploration.
Right. And it's important to understand that SpaceX has a very different approach to testing than we've traditionally seen in the aerospace industry.
Yeah.
They've always been very upfront about failure being part of the process, especially when you're pushing the boundaries of technology like this.
Right. It's more of a learn fast, iterate quickly type of thing.
Yes.
They're not afraid to blow things up if it means getting valuable data.
Right.
But for those of us who don't have engineering degrees,
Sure.
Can you break down exactly what happened during this test flight?
Of course. So one of the key parts of the Starship's landing sequence is what's called the flip maneuver.
Okay.
Basically, the Starship has to tip over horizontally, almost like a skydiver going into a belly flop.
Okay.
And it uses its engines to control its descent.
I'm picturing it.
And as you might imagine,
Yeah.
that flip maneuver requires some incredibly precise control.
Right.
It's a very complex interplay of aerodynamics, engine thrust, onboard computers, all working together to slow the Starship down from supersonic speeds and guide it to a safe landing.
So what went wrong during the flip this time?
Well, the full investigation is still underway, but from the initial data and the footage, it seems like there was an issue during this flip maneuver.
Okay.
Maybe the engines didn't fire as expected, or maybe there was a problem with the aerodynamic control surfaces. It's too early to say for sure.
But what's interesting here is how much data SpaceX can pull from these tests, even when they don't go perfectly.
Oh, absolutely. They'll analyze everything, engine performance,
Yeah.
the behavior of the Starship during the flip, all the telemetry leading up to the breakup.
Right.
All of that will feed into their simulations and help them refine the design for the next prototype. That's basically like having this giant real-life laboratory
Yeah.
where every test, even the ones that don't go as planned, provides really valuable insights.
So even though we saw Starship, break up on its way down, this wasn't a total failure.
Right.
They learned a lot, and they'll apply all those lessons to the next version.
Exactly. And there's actually another really interesting aspect to this test flight that I think is worth highlighting.
Oh, yeah, you're talking about the booster, right?
Yes,
The giant first stage of the rocket.
exactly.
That helped Starship get off the ground in the first place.
Right. So while the Starship itself didn't stick the landing,
Right.
SpaceX was able to land the booster back on Earth safely.
Which is huge.
Yeah.
That's a major part of their reusable rocket technology, and it seems like they're getting better and better at it.
It's absolutely essential to their overall strategy.
Yeah.
Being able to recover and reuse these very expensive components significantly reduces the cost of each launch.
That's something we talk about a lot on Talk Tickers.
Yeah.
Whether it's software or rockets, the ability to scale operations efficiently is crucial.
It's a game changer for the space industry. It allows them to do more tests, iterate more quickly, and ultimately achieve their ambitious goals faster.
So we've got SpaceX pushing the boundaries of space exploration. They're constantly iterating on their designs, and they're proving out their reusable rocket technology.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating story, but we'd be remiss if we didn't at least touch on the potential market impact of all of this.
Right.
After all, this is talk tickers.
Of course, it's still very early days, and any kind of market reaction is purely speculative at this point.
Right.
But it's certainly worth thinking about how this event might ripple through various sectors.
All right, so let's shift gears a bit here and jump into our This Is Not Financial Advice segment.
Okay.
As always, this is just for fun, and we are not recommending any specific trades.
Right.
But sometimes the most interesting conversations come from thinking outside the box.
Absolutely. So let's say you're an investor
Right.
and you're watching this SpaceX test flight
Yeah.
and you're thinking about the bigger picture. What comes to mind?
Well, one thing that jumps out at me is the potential impact on more traditional aerospace companies like, say, Boeing.
Okay.
They're already involved in the space industry to some extent.
Right.
But maybe this event, lights a fire under them and pushes them to be more ambitious.
It's certainly possible. I mean, seeing SpaceX making such significant strides, even with the occasional setback, could definitely be a wake-up call for a company like Boeing.
Do you think that it will truly push Boeing to actually prioritize deep space, though?
Yeah.
I mean, they've been so focused on projects that are, closer to Earth, like the Starliner program,
Right.
transporting astronauts to the International Space Station, things like that.
I mean, it's hard to say for sure,
Yeah.
but I think it at least raises the question, can they afford to let SpaceX dominate the future of space exploration?
Okay, so let's entertain that idea for a second.
Okay.
That Boeing sees SpaceX's progress,
Yeah.
and they decide they need to step up their game in this space race.
Okay.
How might that actually translate into a trade? We're not just talking about, buying Boeing stock outright, are we?
No.
That seems a little too straightforward for talk tickers.
We got to be a little more creative than that.
Right.
How about options?
Okay.
Specifically LAPs?
Well,
Those are long-term equity anticipation securities. Okay. Options contracts with expiration dates that are way out in the future.
LAP. So we're giving ourselves more time
Yeah.
for this whole Boeing space race scenario to play out.
Right, exactly.
Okay, I like where you're going with this. Walk me through it.
All right, so let's say we buy call options on Boeing with an expiration date of January 2027.
Okay.
That's a couple of years out,
Okay.
but here's the key. We choose a strike price that's significantly above where the stock is currently trading.
So we're not just betting that Boeing stock will go up.
Yeah.
We're betting that it'll make a big jump
Right.
over the next couple of years.
Exactly.
We're essentially buying a lottery ticket on Boeing's space ambitions actually taking off.
Exactly. And because we're using APs, the premium that we have to pay for these options is going to be relatively low compared to shorter-term contracts.
Okay, I can see the appeal. High risk, high reward.
Right.
Classic talk ticker.
Classic talk ticker style.
But what are some of the catalysts that we should be watching for? What could actually trigger this surge in Boeing stock price?
Well, there are a few things to consider. One would be any kind of announcement of a major new space-related contract or partnership.
Okay.
Something that signals that Boeing is really serious about deep space exploration.
Like if they partnered with a mining company to develop technology for extracting resources on asteroids or something.
Exactly.
Or announced a plan to build their own lunar lander
Yeah.
to compete directly with SpaceX's Starship.
Those are great examples. Any of those would definitely grab investors' attention.
So those are more event-driven catalysts.
Right.
What about just more subtle shifts in market sentiment?
Even without any big announcements.
Yeah.
We could see a scenario where investors start to price in Boeing's space potential.
Just based on speculation.
Right. It's all about the whisper numbers and shifting expectations.
Whisper numbers.
Yeah.
You're talking about those unofficial earnings estimates and rumors that circulate among analysts and traders.
Exactly. If enough people start whispering that Boeing is about to become, the next big player in the space race, that chatter can really drive up their stock price.
And here's where it gets even more interesting.
Yeah.
We could use technical analysis to help us pinpoint our entry and exit points for the trade.
Of course. Charts are our friends.
You're bringing charts into this.
Always.
Now you're speaking my language.
Especially when we're trying to anticipate market movements.
Right.
We could look for a breakout above a key resistance level in Boeing's stock chart.
Right.
That would be a really strong signal that the market is starting to believe in their space ambitions.
So to recap, we see that breakout above resistance.
Yep.
We buy those Boeing LAP call options.
Right.
Then we sit back and watch as Boeing blasts off,
Hopefully.
at least figuratively.
But let's be realistic here. There are risks to this trade as well, right?
Oh, of course there's no such thing as a sure thing in the market,
Right.
especially when you're dealing with options.
And I'd say the most obvious risk here is that Boeing doesn't actually deliver on their space ambitions.
Right.
Maybe they face technical setbacks or cost overruns, or perhaps the competition just proves too fierce.
And in that case, our LPs expire worthless.
Yeah.
And we lose the premium we paid.
Yep.
Ouch. But there are also factors outside of Boeing's control that could impact this trade too.
Definitely a broader market downturn could drag Boeing's stock down.
Right.
Even if they're making great progress in the space sector.
Right.
Or what if government funding for space exploration dries up?
Yeah.
Or a completely new and disruptive technology emerges that makes all of these current space programs completely obsolete.
Lots of what ifs to consider.
Lots of what ifs.
It's a good reminder that options trading can be very volatile.
Yeah.
And losses can be magnified.
Absolutely. It's critical to understand the risks involved and never invest more than you can afford to lose.
Well said. Now,
Yep.
just to reiterate, this is not financial advice segment is purely hypothetical. It's just for entertainment purposes.
Just for fun.
We're having some fun exploring possibilities.
Yeah.
And hopefully sparking some interesting conversations among our listeners.
Right, but I think even these hypothetical scenarios can be a valuable tool
Yeah,
for learning about different investment strategies and thinking critically about the market.
absolutely. And on that note, I think we'll wrap up our deep dive into SpaceX, Boeing, and the future of space travel.
Sounds good.
Thanks for joining us on Talk Tickers. And as always, do your own research, manage your risk, and never stop exploring.